Sam, Mr. Lipson. The question is a moratorium on BSL-3 labs a good approach for cities to take until there are oversight structures or ordinances on biosafety levels in place?
A moratorium is a strong move. It's something the city of Cambridge did in 1976 for about 6 months until we had something in place. I think I would not say that for BL1 or BL2, but I do feel like the number, I think by and large, I agree with almost everything that's been presented here. I don't think BSL-3 labs are always bad neighbors, but I think the work they do, a lot of it is critical to public health. But yeah, I think that it may be a sufficiently strong policy to send a message. Like there are too many unanswered questions here. So I guess I would support that. Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you very much. All right, so this next message is for Kate and also Sam, and I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work. I'll let our webinar wrangler handle the who's going to be talking in video. But the question is, all right, what happens if there is a fire in a BSL-3 lab? Will first responders enter? Are hazardous materials limited to the first 5 floors of buildings? That can be Kate or Sam.
I have a feeling Kate might have a more complete answer, but let me say that the fire department is a critical partner. And in Cambridge, with the BL3 labs, we always have made sure that before they get finally commissioned, the fire department comes in, brings as many people as they want, and they get to know what's going on, oriented, but also they get some discussion of the kinds of agents that may be present and that information, what is or isn't safe to walk in on, basically. So there's judgment calls the fire department has to make. They have a lot of protection, but they need to know what to protect themselves from. So that's actually worked pretty well.
My only thing would be pretty much just repeating what Sam said. You want to be working closely with the fire department so that they are familiar with what's going on and where they should or should not go. You need to have your own people be very much prepared to deal with emergency situations if they arise.
There are a lot of things that can happen to contain, because the amount of biological agent involved in BL3 lab or most labs is very, very small. It's not like you're dealing, you do have manufacturing scale, but that's not what's going on in the BL3 lab. It's very small scale. And the containment layers, as you've seen in the earlier presentation, are pretty intense. So there are ways of isolating areas, but the amount involved is just not so large that there's a fairly good chance that whatever is being worked on in a BSL-3 laboratory could be properly contained before those scientists left that laboratory. And that's usually what would occur.
All right. So thank you very much for those answers. This next one is for Dennis. And Dennis, if you don't know the answer, feel free to kick it to any of the other presenters, please. But the question is, this is a good one. Do cities take on liability when they approve and permit life science labs, especially the riskier BSL-3 labs? It will be hard to prove which lab is responsible. It'll be hard to prove which lab is responsible if or when there is an accidental release. Say a worker gets infected and residents start to get sick. Do you want to take that one on, Dennis?
Well, I would ask the city solicitor that, but she's not on this call. It seems to me the city's pretty smart and the responsibility totally would rely on the lab. How can the city take it on? As Sam said, we don't have BSL-3s in town, so.
Fours we don't have, yeah.
We have some BSL-3s?
Yes, we have 3 right now, going to 2.
Okay, well then I'll pass the question on to my colleague, Sam.
So I only know this from having worked with our solicitor over the years. there's an extensive amount of protection under the law for people who work in the city carrying out their duties as assigned. Whether there's some liability under the law for the city having passed rules allowing an activity to occur, I don't think I've heard that before. The liability, though, for the city is somewhat limited and protected, as it is for most cities. If they're carrying out public policies that have been properly administered and promulgated, they're largely protected under the law. But yeah, I think that it would probably be the case that the generator of the risk would be held accountable more directly under the law, but that's just a guess.
Thank you, Dennis and Sam. All right, well, Sam, I think you're a popular analyst here, or actually, Sam or Kate could take this. Maybe we can hear from you, Kate, just to give Sam a little bit of a break. But if you're not comfortable, then that's fine too. So the question is, or the statement is, the federal government is considering policy requiring all BSL-3 labs be regulated for biosafety and biosecurity concerns, whether they receive government funding or are privately funded. And there is a growing concern within the scientific community as well. Given this growing concern, should all BSL level labs be required to be more transparent and regulated? And then there's a second little question. Should cities require that private labs follow and comply with NIH guidelines?
For the first part, I would say that it's important to be monitoring what's going on, not just in biomedical labs, but all industries need to be responsible to the communities that they're in, to make sure that they're doing the best they can, so that everyone is safe. I mean, that's first and foremost something that they need to be considering. I have no idea if cities can. I mean, I assume they could pass laws to make sure that the NIH guidelines are followed, whether they're funded by NIH or not. But I'm not a city person, so I don't know.
Cities and towns can absolutely do this. In California, I understand health is organized primarily at the county level. And there's a little bit more bang for the effort, I think, if you're organizing at a county level. So that part of it is quite clear. And I hope my talk made the case that there's a lot of benefits that aren't just about dealing with the highest risk labs, that are about creating a culture of tolerance and transparency and accountability. That's what I hope. But yeah, I think that is a good idea. I do think, however, as I mentioned at the end of the talk, that given how long that might take, there might need to be a rapid action strategy for BL3 labs in the interim, because in another 2 or 3 years, there may be several, if I understand correctly. What was the first part of the question, though? I'm sorry, I forgot.
It was a statement and a question. It said the federal government is considering policy requiring all BSL-3 labs to be regulated for biosafety and biosecurity concerns. The question is there a concern within the scientific community as well?
Oh, well,
I think
I wouldn't speak to that, but I think NIH has expressed concern. Prieta and others have pointed out specific transcripts where this has come up in meetings, and it should, that if they're not getting direct oversight, and to say NIH regulations, they don't necessarily go on site that often, but there's a lot of documentation and accountability. But yeah, I understand it's been raised as a concern in privately funded labs where there's no oversight from the NIH. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Back to Sam again. Sam, you ready? Here we go. For Sam.
I'll just keep my mute off.
Even names you. It says for Sam. Are incident reports made public?
They are reported to us. We hold them, but they're not publicly published. They are public documents, though. So if we got a public request for information, any information that is redacted would be about protecting the identity of individuals. We do redact certain information around the members of the Biosafety Committee, members of the IACUC. There's certain things about protecting individual identities, but yeah, if somebody made a government a simple request for documents about accidents that were reported to us, we would pull out the names and we would share it.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, this next one is for Kate. All right, here we go. How many BSL-3 labs are in the Bay Area or in California? And are there any BSL-4 labs in California that you know of? Or are researchers working on BSL-4 pathogens?
So I don't have a list of all potential BSL-3 labs. I know of 5 that are in California. That's Northern California and Southern California together. And I don't know of any BSL-4 labs in California.
All right, this one's back for Sam. All right, so the question/statement is, sometimes developers accuse opponents of BSL-3 labs as being motivated by fear, not facts. However, they fail to address the main issue that is foreseeability. The question, I guess, then is, how do we more effectively advocate for public safety?
Well, I think that you guys are doing it. There's a recognition. You try to find good models and examples of how it could be done differently. You try to get indications from well-informed federal agencies about what their concerns are. I just think you're bringing a lot of credibility by putting this kind of workshop together. You can rely on us to help if you're going in that direction.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
If I could add, Steve, I think it's getting news articles out and building on this event perhaps, but to talk about what you've learned and just constantly sending out information to the news groups. Obviously, this could be sensational in some ways, especially a more dangerous lab, perceived as a more dangerous lab. That when Sam gave the presentation in 1976, that's what it was. It made national news, what was happening in Cambridge. So it's worthy of that, of a broader discussion, and you'll find your sources.
How dangerous is a botulism toxin manufacturing facility?
I cannot answer that. I'd have to have a lot more information. I mean, obviously, it's a dangerous toxin. If you're manufacturing it, you've got a lot of it around. So there is certainly a potential for some high risk.
Let me add briefly that if you're above a very small amount of botulinum toxin, it's considered a select agent. And as such, it would fall under select agent oversight, which is kind of a special category. But it would get some, I don't precisely know, and maybe Kate, you have better idea of what select agent requirements exist on the federal level.
So that actually is very strict oversight. You are providing the federal government with emergency plans, with security plans, with your occupational health plan for all of your workers. You track your inventory very, very strictly. That's some of the regulations that go with being part of the select agent program.
So it says, the question is, some local municipalities may not be sufficiently motivated to issue BSL-3 requirements, semicolon. Would it be better if the state developed a standard set of requirements similar to state mandated regulations that already exist for chemical and bio wastes? In California, such requirements already exist for municipalities with regard to increasing housing stock.
I think that there's several things there, but one of them is, would it make more sense to regulate biosafety at the state level? Is sort of the heart of that, I think. I actually think it would. I think it would be much better for this industry to have a single set of rules across the state. But politically, that may not happen. And I don't know if California would listen to that. I think it makes a lot more sense. It also brings a lot more resources. You can get a team of folks at the state level who are specialists in biosafety who can pay special attention to higher risk labs. You know, just so many more resources come with administration of that regulation at the state level. I tried to do that in Mass. I worked with a group to try to advocate something based on the Cambridge regulation that would cover the whole state. And we got a lot of support from Mass Bio, for instance, to do that. But it was some of the research hospitals downtown in Boston that didn't want some state regulation, unfortunately.
All right. Well, there's another question that's related. That's very close, and this can be again for any of our panelists. If not, so state requirements would be good, but do we have experiences, or do you guys have experience with county level requirements, either in Massachusetts or in California?
Well, we had an esteemed governor, Bill Weld, who effectively got rid of county government in Massachusetts when he was in power. We know the geographies, but they really don't have any governance behind them. So I think me and Dennis are kind of out of the picture on this one.
I mean, I can talk to my own experience of having to deal with not just Los Angeles County, but also Los Angeles City and California State. It can get confusing sometimes on who's saying what and what you have to do. But I mean, the nice thing about having a county level or municipality level governance is that they can be very directed at the special concerns that are there in that particular area.
Thank you.
Could I add one quick thing? I'd say the biggest barrier, though, is to local rules. A county being better than a small city is having enough critical mass, because you can see that there's real cost associated with this. There's some special expertise, subject matter knowledge. So I would argue that county is better, state is better than county.
When you work with, from a town point of view, unless it's a very strong opinion, people are afraid of losing. From a competition point of view, they're going to lose development. So the broader the rules are based on, broader area, the more equal everybody is. You have to have a serious problem going on in one town for a town to strike back. And that's what happened in Cambridge. But keep in mind, we had MIT and Harvard promoting it. So we had to act. I sense that that's not the case south of San Francisco. It should be just as Paul said, it should be a state law. It should be the broadest law possible.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're doing our best to increase awareness, right? That's why. And thanks again for everyone for coming in and presenting. You guys have been awesome and answering questions too. We're supremely grateful for your sharing of information. And I'm going to name them: Dennis Carlone, Kate O'Brien, Paul Maginetti, and Sam Lipson, because you guys have all been amazing. There's some more questions. Shall I keep going? Yeah, we're nodding.
Yeah,
all right, good.
Yeah, keep them coming.
All right, let's keep going. All right, so the next one is for Sam again. All right. In the BSL-3 lab in Cambridge, do they perform EPPP research?
I don't know what EPPP research is, but
I think it's enhanced.
Gain of function?
Enhanced something, pathogens, something. Sorry, I don't know how to.
Okay. The work going on in 2 active labs. There's one that's permitted but mothballed, and two that are active. And the work going on is primarily focused on tuberculosis and malaria. I think there may be some new focus on coronaviruses, as I haven't looked through those. Those documents just came in a few days ago, but most of the work going on in one of those two was tuberculosis basic research. The other, the one that went offline a couple of years ago, was mostly doing flavivirus work, which is zoonotic viruses that affect animals, but can be zoonotic to people. And we talk about West Nile and Eastern equine and a number of flaviviruses that could pose public health threats. And they were working on vaccine development there. So I can tell you more generically. Right now, I'm not really sure what the EPPP is. So sorry about that.
Thank you. That's perfect. Actually, I just looked it up while you're talking. EPP stands for Enhanced Potential Pandemic Pathogen. So it sounds like you had it. It sounds like you hit it right on the.
Yeah, there's none of that work is going on at this time, Cambridge.
Oh, there's no EPP work going on in Cambridge.
Those are enhanced pathogens that are thought to be candidates for human pandemics. And no, that is not the case. That would not be true of malaria or TB.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a couple of kind of general statements. These are for Kate, Sam, Dennis, and Paul. Paul, you're not forgotten. So this is a statement more, but it's a really good one, I think. It says, so I'll read it out loud. Great presentations. Thank you. I've spent my career dealing with historical chemical and radiological contamination. By and large, because our societal awareness of the legacy contaminants issue was way late in the game. This biolab safety lack of oversight and regulatory structure screams for something substantial now on a local level here. The resistance for such oversight is hard to understand. All right, and I guess that was a statement more than a question, so I'll go to the next one.
Now, I'd like to add something.
Sure, please.
Most people don't speak up. Whether it's planning, development, lab safety, they don't speak up until there's a disaster, until it's something in their backyard. We don't plan. We don't think broadly enough. And, it's all short-term thinking. Well, new commercial development in this bad location. Yeah, it's bad, but taxes. So that wins. It's not the broader view of things. And it's in all our areas of expertise. And, my project that I showed you, the East Cambridge Riverfront, was called Pie in the Sky by the Boston Globe. I was called A Pimple on the Ass of Progress by a department store. And believe me, I reminded both of them of that. It's determination. It's getting all the people at the same information level and being persistent. People were shocked that I was a consultant for 30 years on this project. Shocked. How could you last? Persistent. That's what you're starting here. And you got to keep pushing on all the issues. So sorry, I had to get my points in.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
that's awesome.
I'd like to mention that I'm involved because we're surrounded by it, and we are living surrounded by brownfields from the semiconductor industry, from military developments during the Cold War that have left a toxic legacy. And it's because of that short-sightedness. So for me, with biotech, I'm looking, well, we've got all these new things happening. What might happen 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now? We need to keep an eye on what's happening so that we can act proactively and A, not have a disaster, and B, not have all these labs that are left over 50 years from now that people have long moved on, and now we have to somehow decommission and tear them down and reuse that property for something else. If we plan now, then we're not going to have to deal with that later.
Yeah, I'm a layman, but I think I agree. It is better to kind of understand the risks and the benefits as well up front, and have those as part of the plan rather than just accepting developments. So we have a question. This is an open question. It's not addressed to anybody, so I think anybody could pick this one up. The question is, considering that many of the Bay Area biolabs are being located adjacent to the Bay wetlands, yeah, it's true, and that the biosafety levels are based on human risk only, isn't that a risk that is not controllable? Say, for example, if a lab were researching an avian flu strain that has minimal impact on people, but could potentially infect migratory birds, is there any oversight for that at all? Hot potato. Anyone want to pick that one up?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think we've established that there are really no oversight rules right now on the biological risk side for a privately owned lab in California. I think we've kind of established that part, right? They may have to be subject to the state's rules around radiation and chemicals, but they don't have to report or get a permit related to the biological risk, I think. So that part of it, I think we know. But could you give me repeat a little bit?
Considering that many of the Bay Area biolabs are being located adjacent to the bay and or wetlands, got it?
Right.
And
Yeah,
that the
okay.
biosafety levels are based on human risk, isn't that a risk that is not controllable?
Right.
Say,
Well,
for
when they're-
example, if a lab were researching an avian flu strain.
Maybe I could take this, Kate as well could take this. I think that they do, when they're talking about animal pathogens, part of the risk model and the potential sensitive receptor, basically who could be harmed, would include animals as a concern. But they don't want to, I mean, every precaution is taken not to release that in the first place. So those engineering controls, those trainings, the PPE, the double HEPA filtration, all those things are about not releasing it at all. So I think that's kind of where the focus should be on, rather than whether it's a human or a bird who might potentially be exposed.
I say ditto.
All right.
I want to
And
say that that's a great question to end on, because we do have a huge pandemic going on, and it's not the COVID pandemic, it's a flu pandemic, and it's an avian flu pandemic that's affecting birds, all our wild birds in the US, and it's spreading from different bird species to bird species, and it's right on our shores.
And we can't get eggs.
And we can't get eggs. That's true. So, Steve, if that's okay, it's 4:15. We should probably stop. I would love to hear these questions. There are still some really good questions. If we can, we will pass the questions along to our panelists. And if we can get answers, we will. I want to thank those who sent the questions in, because they're very thoughtful. And I want to really thank the panelists for an excellent presentation. Everyone who registered will receive a link to a recording of the website, and the presenters have very kindly agreed to allow their slides to also be presented on that website. So
You want to take us out, Gita?
let's all then say good evening, and thank you everyone for being here. Presenters, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough.